It's currently 11:11 p.m. I most recently did some work on the triangle ball polystyrene drawing project. I think roughly from about 9:45 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. doing a few triangles using an ultrafine tipped black Sharpie marker. As I put in a lot of effort to do my best with all the triangles for the triangle ball polystyrene drawing project. I worked at Wegmans today from 8:30 in the morning to 2 p.m. I restocked merchandise within the produce department by going to the produce holding area and using primarily carts. Using primarily one cart I designated as mine for the day to transport merchandise from the produce holding area to the produce department. Which are just a short distance away from each other. I think I took my one and only 15-minute break at 1:30 p.m. And during it had my lunch of 4 Texas Hots, 4 of these. Though after it took roughly 4 minutes to walk to the cafe area of the supermarket, where I eat my work lunches, and the time it took to unwrap those 4 Texas Hots, Yeah, I only had time to eat 3 of the 4 Texas Hots and only took a couple of sips from the plastic bottle of water my mom packed. To go with the 4 Texas Hots. So I had the remaining Texas Hot. And what was left of that plastic bottle of water. After I ended my shift at 2 p.m. and got in my mom's car. Eating the remaining Texas Hot and drinking what was left of that plastic bottle of water during the car drive from the Wegmans I work at to the Wegmans by Mom's place. Well, we made a stop at that Wegmans, the Wegmans by Mom's place, so I could get some a couple of grocery items for my sister. At the time, it was overcast with just a bit of rain. Which I think the weather might have been like throughout all of today. I recall getting up today at 7 in the morning after waking myself up to an alarm I set. And having coffee both right before Mom drove me to the Wegmans I work at, and during the first few hours of my shift. Having about 1 cup of plain coffee from the cup my mom made for me around 7:30 in the morning. Having some of it before we had to leave to drive me to work at Wegmans. What was left at that time was put into a thermos. One of the thermoses my mom owns. And then over the first few hours of my shift, roughly from 8:30 in the morning to 11 in the morning or so, I finished what was left of that cup of coffee that was put into that thermos, as I had, in terms of drinking the coffee, I was busy with getting ready for work at Wegmans and then restocking merchandise within the produce department. Afterwards, once I started my shift, I restocked hard items such as various onions and potatoes, but also some of the fresh fruit that was in front, more towards the front of the produce department. Yeah, what I think around around noon, 11 in the morning to noon, I restocked from the carrot runner, the carrot section, and then during the last hour before I took my 15-minute break, I recall roughly from 12:45 p.m. to about 1:20 p.m. I restocked the mushroom section using one of the mushroom runners. There was another mushroom runner, but it pretty much had stuff boxes I had already restocked from. Sort of flat boxes, as in their height is much lower than their width. But they're not quite flat. They kind of have the dimension of pizza boxes, would be the best way of describing them. Obviously not quite shaped like pizza boxes. And there's no lid up top, just kind of flaps of cardboard at the corners. Yeah, I restocked the mushroom section at the request of one of my coworkers. I also restocked the banana section a few times throughout my shift. But today it wasn't the most common thing I restocked, as in I didn't restock the banana section several times throughout my shift. All the while, at times I offered passing customers assistance, though if any customers needed or requested assistance, they would approach me. They would get my attention, not the other way around. And in those cases, I did my best to assist, whether that was searching for a particular item, with that kind of request often having me, if it wasn't out within the produce department, I would always try and look for it within the produce holding area. And whenever I could, I would ask a coworker if they saw that item. And I think more often than not, we have the item either out within the produce department or within the whole produce holding area, but not always. At which point, I would generally tell the customer to come back later. We might have it then. I noticed as I was walking through the interior of the Wegmans I work at that the radio is back to playing regular radio music rather than the Christmas themed songs it was playing in the days leading up to Christmas. And both that and the regular radio music are good. Occasionally during my shift, a song I particularly like will play, or a song I recognize will play, and I'll kind of mentally jam to it a bit without getting too distracted. I'll still stay focused on the tasks ahead of me. Here's the new firearm I crafted today after I got back from my shift at Wegmans and the brief stop at the Wegmans by Mom's place while Mom was driving me back to her place after my shift. It's an improvement over the old one. Here's where I am currently on Oceania. I'm currently growing carrots because it's one of the tasks I need to complete in order to get the emeralds needed to make the left arm of the clay colossus.